Hello, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the 2020 podcast, Canada's #1 optometry podcast. I am your host, Dr. Harbir Sayan. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me here, guys. As always, I'm truly, truly grateful for all the support over these 4+ years that I've been doing the podcast. I can't thank you enough for listening, for watching, for sharing, for liking and commenting and all those things. And as always, I'm going to ask you, if you could continue to do the same things, please, that have helped the podcast grow so we can reach more of our friends and colleagues to share the message of our amazing guests, really most importantly, such as my amazing guest today, Dr. Tanya Gill. Dr. Tanya Gill is the founder of the brand We Love Eyes, which we're really going to learn a lot about today. She is an optometrist based in the Bay Area, went to UC Berkeley for undergrad and her optometry school. She is a former private practice owner and clinical director at Oakland Vision Center, which was an award-winning optometry clinic. She's been on the speaking circuit. She's done all the writing the articles and everywhere that you'd want to be. And now she's working from home and driving this great brand and making it such a great brand that everybody in our industry and our profession is recognizing and knowing. So thank you so much, Tanya, for being here on the podcast.
Thanks, Harbir, for having me. It's a pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you. And we just saw each other. It's been a few months now, I guess. We just saw each other in Toronto at the Dry Eye Summit, which was fun. I got to see you there and your team and the energy. I love the energy. You and your team is so great.
Thank you. I missed you already. I just want to put that out there. I miss you.
Oh, that's kind. I miss you too. I can't believe it's taken us this long to get this. We're gonna definitely try to do something in person next time I see you.
Wonderful.
I just didn't know you were gonna be there that time, so it was really nice to get to chat with you, and I think we really connected. So there's gonna be more. But this is the intro. This is my first time having you on the podcast. So I want anybody who's listening and watching who hasn't met you or doesn't know you that well to get to learn about you a little bit. So why don't we do this, Tanya? If you were to meet somebody at a conference like we did, what would you say about yourself? Like the kind of 2-3 minute pitch about Tanya Gill.
Tanya Gill is very simple and easy. I like 3 things. Number 1, I like laughing, having a fun time, hence the energy at the Dry Eye Summit. I said, I'll go to the show. I was talking to Eye Drop Shop. I'll go to the show as long as I have fun. That's number 1. Number 2, I truly believe a healthy lifestyle is how I want to live. It's also the message I want to grow and spread. And number 3, I really believe in authenticity. If it's not real, I'm not interested, and I'm a Scorpio. I can only tell the truth.
Oh, very good. I don't know much about zodiac signs, but I'll trust you on that one. The authenticity part is legit. Another friend and colleague of mine, actually based out there in Toronto, Dr. Kiran Ramesh. I don't know if you know her at all. Really, really amazing person with really great energy. And I asked her, like, where do you get this amazing energy? Like every time I'm around you, I feel like better, and her thing was authenticity. And I didn't quite get the connection at the time, but I realized the more authentically, kind of like as close to your authentic self you can be, the less energy you're wasting on trying to be something else. And then you got this energy to just put out there in the world and connect with people. So that makes sense.
Totally. The person that you see right now is the person that you met in real life, is the person
100%.
that you see on social media, is the person maybe a little nicer than I am to my husband.
That's fair.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah. So slight difference in mine. I have to be a little nicer to my wife than I am on here. So just a little change. She did create 3 little humans for me. So for us, so I have to kind of make sure I'm being nice to her. Okay. So I definitely got the 2 of those, the fun and the authenticity just from our short meeting in Toronto. Tell me about the wellness thing. Number 2 on your list.
Health and wellness. So this rewinds back. I mean, I went to Berkeley. I've always lived a healthy lifestyle. I've always been somewhat of an athlete. Always was attracted to things like that. I took nutrition when I was at Berkeley. But it really started when I met my husband in 2012. He kept getting these chapped lips. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I'm just an amazing kisser. I mean, this is crazy. Wasn't the case. It turned out he was allergic to sodium lauryl sulfate, SLS, which is a surfactant in our washing detergent. And I
Oh,
thought to myself, oh, if he's allergic to SLS and getting chapped lips, maybe my dry eye patients, that's why I can't fix them. They might be allergic or having sensitivity to SLS. I got to pay attention. And that's really when my wheels started spinning about the health component as it relates to dry eye and anterior segment disease.
wow. And I guess we're going to go down a little bit of a rabbit hole here. So SLS is in certain products that we would use around our face or our eyes.
So, shockingly, sodium lauryl sulfate, it's a surfactant. It is in a lot of cleansers. It's even in things like mouthwash, toothpaste, shampoos. It's in
Oh,
a lot of products that we use every day. I
sheesh.
didn't know
My
until
lips
I
have been
actually
chapped
looked
just
at
learning about
labels.
this. Yeah, yeah. So tell me, okay, tell me about a little bit more about your journey. Post optometry school. A few highlights of like what was good about your career. What do you remember about your career pre We Love Eyes?
I love my career. From the second I graduated optometry school, I knew I wanted to be in private practice. I pursued that. I worked in different settings. I worked corporate. I worked for two ophthalmologists. I tried my own thing. It failed. That was my first private practice. It was a private practice that took no insurance. That was just a failed model. And I just kept trying and trying until I found what I really wanted. And long story short, believe it or not, somebody actually fired me from being an associate at their practice. That was probably the most
Wow.
devastating thing I'd ever been through. He let me go so he could have that doctor scheduled for his friend's son that was graduating optometry school. So that
I
was the
see.
reason he gave me at least.
Good old
Anyway,
nepotism.
so I was devastated, but lesson
Yeah.
learned. So I saw an opening at Oakland Vision Center, applied, got the job, and I owned that practice in, I think it was 18 months after that. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, wow. So that's I just had a guest on recently, Dr. Cameron McCrodin, who mentioned the farmer's fable or something like that. That it's kind of referred to as like, often something bad, negative, perceivingly negative event can actually lead to a positive event, right? A lot of the events that happen in our lives, when you look back, have a totally different connotation to them. So the fact that you got let go of that one position led you to
I was
Oakland
so
Vision Center,
upset. Yeah.
but you led you to this clinic that you eventually became the owner of, and then that's perfect segue because I wanted to talk about that because you took that to an amazing height. I remember seeing over the years, past years on social media, all the stuff you were doing there, and the aesthetic of the clinic, everything was really great. So tell me a little bit about that because you said to me offline that was like one of those practices that seemed like it was sort of on its way out, but you revived it and then turned it into something else.
Yeah, it was a business that really needed some TLC, some love, a full-time clinic director, just to really revamp the business, really inspire the staff. And I saw that opportunity after working there for a year, and I said, "Oh, this business could be something." It's in the center of downtown Oakland. When the Warriors won those basketball games, that parade was right on
Oh wow,
Broadway, which is where our front doors open out into Broadway.
wow.
Fantastic location. Those years, it was a lot of fun. I mean, the highlight of owning an optometry practice there was just the Warriors.
Yeah.
That's all we cared about.
I think that's the highlight of anybody who lived or worked in that space. No, 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 no
Oh,
doubt.
so much fun. And yeah, I changed it and I won a award. Got had my face on the cover of a magazine in 2000, I think 14.
Wow.
Did I send a copy passive aggressively to that practice that fired me? Yeah. I did do that.
Wow.
Guilty, I know.
Oh man, that's amazing.
But yeah, it was a nice journey and the whole Instagram social media thing was picking up. Not many eye doctors had entered the space. And being in downtown Oakland, being around a lot of tech, I said, oh, I'm going to try this. It's free. I
Hmm.
have no money. So let me try it. And
Yeah,
that ended up becoming incredibly successful.
that's amazing. What would you say, or a couple of things, if you can remember, if you can dwindle it down to just a few things that you did to turn that office around? Like, what do you think made it successful? Was there like your culture in the office? Was it certain products you're selling? Was it connecting with the community? Was it something else?
I think it was truly my vision. I really had this vision board. I started at the very bottom of this ladder, and if you look up where I wanted to be, and if we could just do a super simplify, I wanted to be on the top of this ladder somehow. And so everything that I decided, it was one step at a time. So I never made big changes. I just knew my end goal, really was focused on that end goal. And I just took steps to get there.
Mm.
First, let's clean the office. Second, let's remove the wallpaper. Third, let's put in hardwood floors. Fourth, let's change the dress code. Let me talk to the staff. How do they want the culture of this practice to be? So I made a very stepwise approach. My office still looked like it was in the 80s for the first 3-4 years I owned it. I didn't
Right.
change that right away. So definitely takes time. And when you have
Mm-hmm.
no money, it takes even more time. And I didn't want to
Yeah,
be in debt either. So I was, I think, smart about it in hindsight.
that's excellent. Excellent. Having that vision. I talked to on the podcast and otherwise different people about building a culture or building a successful business, and that's probably the number one thing that comes up is having a strong, clear, defined vision. And then one way or another, kind of relaying that to everybody on the team, kind of knowing what direction we're all heading in. That's one of the most important things that comes up. So it's great to hear it again. I guess that kind of verifies that again. So for the rest of us, like for example, for me in my practice, I'm always trying to find a way to elevate and to try to make it better. And I think that's one thing where I've fallen a bit short is sharing that vision. Like I have a vision, but I don't think I've been sharing it enough with my staff, office manager, everyone. So we all know we're pulling in the same direction all the time. So that's good to know. So
If I
let's
could just add
go.
if I could add a
Yeah.
little thing on that ladder, I was also in the very beginning a terrible manager, terrible. So I took a bunch of classes, but I wanted to become a better manager. And just hearing what you're saying, all you need to do is have an office meeting and ask, I want to grow this business. I want to empower you guys. How do I do that? Your staff is actually going to give you the answer. They are going to
Mm.
tell you. You just have to listen. So that's what I learned. And I became an exceptional manager by the time I sold my business. Listening to your staff, but not just listening, but just asking them and responding is so vital to success and running a positive culture in your business.
That's amazing. And so how often would you say you had those meetings kind of on average?
We had a meeting every single week, and I'd have a different
Every week.
member present the meeting every single week. And the meeting was truly about, okay, here's problem A. How do this, don't bring me a problem unless you have the solution. My staff knows this about me. So sometimes they would just present the solution before they present the problem. It was magical. So much
That's
fun.
amazing.
So once a week, lots of communication. And then even during the day to have little powwows. One-on-one is
Oh
very
yeah.
important.
Checking in with everyone. Okay. So weekly meetings and giving the staff the responsibility of leading the meeting in, taking turns leading and presenting. That's another way, I guess, to keep them feeling involved in the business rather than just working there. I think it's great.
I want them to feel, to be, I work with you. I just facilitate your dreams is really my motto.
Facilitate your dreams. Love it. So how long did you own Oakland Vision Center?
I was there maybe 14, 15 years. I owned it most
Oh
of
wow.
that time. Yeah, wow.
Makes
12
And
years
when did
maybe.
you start We Love Eyes?
I started We Love Eyes by accident. Probably 2014 is really when it started. By the time 2016 came around, I actually had a physical product that had gone through all the regulatory things I needed, and that was launched to market 2016.
Awesome. I feel like all the best businesses are started by accident, you know? Like they're meant to be like one thing and they actually turn out to be something different. So that's awesome. So tell me, I love like these what do we call them? These sort of like the beginning stories, the starting point of these brands. I feel like a lot of times we celebrate and like fascinate over like how significant a brand has become, but we forget like once upon a time it was just an idea, How did it go from an idea to an active, you actually starting a company? What was the beginning? What did it look like?
The beginning was seriously a glass of sangria on the second date with my husband. So I was very into getting married. I'm like, I'm going to get married. So help me. Right. And so he was asking me, like, hey, what do you want to get, is what he asked me. And he meant to ask me a question, what do you want to order tonight for dinner? And I just went in this huge tirade. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And by the way, I want to invent something. I put that in there, and he said, what do you want to invent? And I said, I have no idea, but I know I'm going to invent something one day. And then, probably just saying that out loud, a few weeks later, she walked into my office, and it was this patient complaining, Dr. Gill, these are the worst contacts you've ever prescribed me. I need different contacts. And I looked at her and I said to her, when's the last time you actually removed your eye makeup? Oh, I don't do that. And I said, why don't you do that? And she says, well, I need to remove my eye makeup with these ingredients or lack of. I need something. And these are words that are still on my label to this day. And I had pretty much no idea what they were in 2012. Vegan, cruelty-free. Remember, my practice is right by Berkeley. Paraben-free. It's got to be all of these things. Also, can't have preservatives, this and that. And I said, hold on, let me get my pen. Let me write this down. So I went to Whole Foods that night, thinking I could just pull it from like the shelf, buy it for her, and just prove her wrong. She was right. So instead of doing that, I actually went to a health food store, bought a bunch of ingredients, and I actually made it for her in my kitchen.
Wow. Okay. So I have a couple of. So rather than using a makeup removal product that had those ingredients, she chose to just leave her makeup on her face.
Yep.
Okay. I guess
That makes no sense.
Is that the lesser of two evils? I'm not sure. Okay. Now, what do you remember some of the ingredients? What did you make? What was that first product that you made at home?
It's right here. It's this one. I made
Here's
this.
one I made earlier. Perfect.
Yeah.
And that was your first product?
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I made this. It contains tea tree oil, and the tea tree oil is a trade secret, the concentration of it. But I did test every concentration of tea tree oil possible on my then fiance. We're married now.
He didn't burn his skin or he didn't lose his lashes or anything. Okay.
I mean, it's cruelty free. Poor guy. He was a great sport.
Oh man, cruelty is subjective in that situation, I suppose.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, so you actually bought a bunch of stuff, put it together, created it, and did you give it to your patient? Did she use it? Like that initial thing?
After a few weeks of trial and error, and I said, okay, I like this formula. I made sure I used it on myself, tested it on my husband. I thought, okay, I think she's going to like this. And so I put it in a bottle. I put it in a bottle that looked just like this, no label, nothing. And it said, seriously, for patient name, with a piece of masking tape. And I gave it to her. I was like, here you go. Use this. And she's like, what is this? And I said, you were right. There's nothing that exists in this world according to your ultra demanding list. Go try this. And she says, this is phenomenal. This is what I need. She's still a patient, and I still talk to her once in a while.
Amazing.
But she still uses it. She buys it
Does
from
she ask you for royalties or no?
She didn't ask me for anything, thank goodness, because
Good.
no, she didn't.
Well, I guess you did give her something that she's never had before, which was this product that she could use. So that's something.
So I started
and she's in your
providing it to
story.
her. I gave it to her for free for a year. I mean, I couldn't charge her for it because I was making it in my kitchen. And it got to the point where I was making it for so many patients. One of them just said, can you just like bottle this up and sell this? And I thought, maybe.
Turns out you can. So then let's fast forward to then, was it just that one product when you got the initial sort of government approval, FDA approval, whatever you have to get? Was it just that first cleanser in the beginning?
So I had this, and then quickly thereafter, I increased the tea tree oil concentration to make a cleansing oil for blepharitis. So that was the
Cool.
next thing. And then I also happened to formulate in my kitchen a foaming cleanser. And so I had 3 products. And at that point, I'm like, oh, shoot, I need a brand name. What am I going to call this? So I polled my entire office, patients, what should I call this? And our tagline, if you remember from my Instagram days, was hashtag We Love Eyes. That was just on
Oh
the front
yeah,
of
yeah.
my practice. And so I just took that.
Easy, genius.
Yeah, it was
It's
easy.
amazing. Um, I was just thinking about your feeling that you wanted to invent something. Do you think the fact that did you grow up in the Bay Area? You've always lived there? Do you think growing up there had something to do with that? Like where you grew up? Because I just,
Uh,
being near Silicon Valley and all that kind of stuff, like, do you think that had something to do with it or not really?
my mom said I was just born an entrepreneur. She just says I was like that when I was a kid. Do you remember, I don't know if you're old enough, Cabbage Patch Kids? They were super
Yep.
popular, you could never buy one. My dad tried to buy me one. I wanted a redhead, freckled, ginger Cabbage Patch Kid. That was my thing. Had to have one. One day we're at Lucky's grocery store. They were giving one away as, like, a little art contest, make a piece of art, and then go ahead and win this Cabbage Patch Kid. So while
Mhm.
my mom was grocery shopping, what was I doing? I think I was 12 years old, maybe 10. I was studying all the entries. And so, yeah, I'm like, take me to the art store. Went to the art store. I won that Cabbage Patch Kid.
That's amazing, amazing.
Yeah.
So you have the entrepreneurial sort of gene, if you will, but you also have the will, that desire to put something together that will help you succeed to win that contest or build a brand. What does the early days of now, let's say you got those 3 products, what does it look like? You're trying to get this out there. How are you connecting with people? Who are you selling it to? And how are you getting it to them?
So probably for the first year, I only sold it to patients in my office. It was
Okay.
really the way to test the product. I really just thought it was something I was just going to sell in office to my patients that had eye problems. And the more I did, the more, they were like, why can't I just buy this online? It's like, I don't know.
Mm,
Can you? It just started growing from there. I never wanted to have We Love Eyes be a company. I just thought it was a hobby just to solve a problem that needed some help.
yeah.
And yeah, go ahead.
The design of the packaging, the logo, all this I'm fascinated by all of this. So what was that like? Were you drawing these things up yourself? Did you hire somebody to design stuff for you? What did that look like?
I have no money, so I came up with the tagline. I also learned Photoshop so I could make my own label. I
Wow.
chose this heart because I couldn't afford to buy a logo or create one. So it is one of those fonts that you can just use from Microsoft Word. It looked like it
Perfect.
had a heart, which meant love, which I love, right? And it looked like a teardrop. So I'm like, I think this is me.
Oh,
So I,
there you
I
go.
feel it,
Perfect.
right? It looks like a drop, but it's a heart. So it was free. The reason why I have a craft box is because when I was shopping around for boxes, craft was the cheapest and I could only afford one color. So I bought black.
Wow.
I mean, it was
Just
very bare
out of
bones.
necessity. But like now you look at
Yeah.
it, you've created a brand that's the brand. You see the box, you know that, it's that's so it doesn't have to be necessarily like you come out with some fancy box that stands out from everything else. If you can actually build the brand itself, the box becomes,
The
it
brand.
becomes its own thing, right? The branding is so important. So tell me about, okay, when you started doing online, how about the shipping side of it? Were you shipping things out or how was that working?
I was really good at shipping things. When we finally went to shipping things out, I was really good at shipping things incorrectly out to my poor customers and patients. Yeah,
Oh my
not my
goodness.
thing.
Okay.
Terrible. I mean, mistake after mistake. Like, I sent it where? Yeah, terrible.
That can
And
become costly, I
then,
imagine.
yeah, in 2016, I had a patient come in with blepharitis, helped his eye problem, put him on the foaming cleanser and the this product. And then I was really into double cleanse. My concept double cleanse I pioneered for Eyecare in 2000. I did this in 2014, but 2016. So I gave him these two. I was like, go do your homework for 2 weeks, come back. He comes back. It turns out he runs a digital advertising company. And he said, whatever this is voodoo and witchcraft. I want to help you take this to market. Because he just never knew that something like that existed. And he identified it. And I said, okay. And then in 2016, we launched on Shopify. We moved things to a very small fulfillment center in Atlanta, Georgia, because that was one of my non-talents, shipping. So we fixed that.
Okay, so all the products went to a fulfillment center and they shipped everything out from there. Got you.
They did it for free.
When was
for 6 months. That was the deal.
Oh, okay, that's nice. You got a chance to test it out.
I had no money.
So tell me, when was it that what was that? Sorry, I missed that. There's a bit of a lag. I apologize.
It's okay. I just had no money. So I was like, I don't need a fulfillment center. It's cheaper for me to ship them out and make mistakes than hire this fulfillment center. And they said, okay, 6 months for free, because I wasn't sending any products out. And I was like, that's fine. I popped the champagne that first week. We sold $100 worth of product.
Love that. I remember you telling me that in person, like you were just excited to sell $100 worth of product. Now,
I was really,
I'm sure
happy.
You're selling significantly more than what I want to know is, between the $100 and now, when was there a point where you were like, you saw this is actually taking off? Do you remember something like that happening?
I was so busy at Oakland Vision Center. I was probably putting 60 hours between admin and seeing patients at Oakland Vision Center. We Love Eyes was happening slowly. And then one day, probably 3 years into it, we hit 6 figures. And that was a big deal for me to hit the $100,000 mark, maybe it was sooner. Oh, I lied to you just then. I was like, this isn't right. 6 figures within 12 months is what we hit. And I was like, oh, this is something. Like, I remember it being something, but it was still inconsequential to my practice. When 3 years into it, we hit 7 figures. And that's when I was thinking, okay, this is potentially no longer a hobby, but this might become my primary gig.
Yeah, wow. And so at that time, that's pretty quick growth. Where's the manufacturing happening of the product, and how are they keeping up with this?
So I remember when I placed my first purchase order, this is a lab. They're all in the United States. All of the cleansers are made in the United States. None of it's made overseas. They're all made here. That's one thing I was really into, is the whole made in USA thing. So my boxes are made here, labels are made here. And that was one of the things where I was willing to pay a little bit more to have everything made in the US. But it turns out, accidentally, it was the right thing, because now when I have a purchase order that's running through, where are the labels? Where are the boxes? Oh, they're coming from like 2 zip codes away. Very convenient. But my first purchase order I placed for 5,000 units, which gave me a heart attack. That's a lot of units.
I bet. And I also imagine that everything made in the USA came in handy when everybody else is dealing with logistical nightmares during COVID, and everybody's getting delayed with what's the term I'm looking for? Everything supply chain. Thank you. Issues. Where I imagine there was still some here, but like, at least you're not dealing with stuff coming from wherever else, and there's containers sitting on ships out in the ocean waiting to just get docked. So that definitely, I imagine, was beneficial as well.
Yeah, it was. I still had supply chain issues, but in all, nothing compared to what it could have been. COVID was definitely a struggle. I thought we were going to go out of business in 2020 after 2019. Yeah, it was hard.
And how did you get through that? Was there anything that you did specifically to get through that? Or was it just a matter of just kind of weathering the storm and waiting it out?
I had no growth in 2019 or 20, one of those years, just maybe -2% growth. And I thought that was good because negative growth sometimes still is growth, I think. I learned a lot of lessons from that. Crying every other day, I thought was the reason why it helped me recovered. But it's the
Working through
grit.
your
I
emotions
think
is a good thing. It's a healthy thing to
it's
do.
like being raised by a tiger mom just helped me get through that. I mean,
Yeah.
it was hard.
Yeah. I just learned that phrase tiger mom like a week ago. So
Do you have a
I didn't know what
tiger
that was.
mom?
I didn't know what a tiger mom was until a few days ago, actually. Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
I actually
Yeah,
understand what you mean by now.
yeah. My mom is very much a tiger mom that doesn't think she's a tiger mom. She's still upset I didn't graduate from Harvard optometry school.
Well, you know what you could do is to make her proud, you could go start a Harvard optometry school and then give her that. Then send her your face on a magazine. And
Exactly.
then all right. So uh, there's a Tanya, I'm kind of working through, I'm adding some new sections to the podcast here. I want to stay with it, with the times, add new fresh things because there's certain things that are timeless and questions that I ask that uh, listeners and people in the audience they love and they tell me about it. But I want to add some new things that'll keep it fresh and keep it listeners on their toes. So one of the things I'm going to add, well, I'll get to that in a minute. There's a quick little 4 or 5 questions, quick response, rapid fire that I want to go through here, and we'll try to keep it short, like a couple of words to one sentence, roughly. Okay. And I want to also actually, while we're doing this, I forgot to last couple of times I've done this. I got to give a shout out to Bart Foster, founder of Business Outside. I don't know if you heard of it, but I'm going to have him on at some point soon. But some of these questions are kind of inspired by him. So I just want to make sure I put that out there. If anybody's heard Bart say these questions and you're like, Harbir asked the same questions. Well, I actually got some of them from Bart. So I want to make sure he gets the credit where it's due. So let's go through this. Rapid fire. What gives you energy?
This is supposed to be rapid, right?
Yeah.
Being
Well,
creative.
the answer's ideally you give me the answer quickly, but the answer should be quick, short as well. So yeah, what gives you energy? Like what gets you hyped up?
Being creative.
Being creative. What drains your energy? Nothing.
No, I mean, I have my inside voice and then my outside voice.
Well, I'd love to hear the inside voice, but I understand you might have to filter it. That's fine.
Yeah, I like being around people that want to learn new things, so curious people.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm around people
The
that
opposite.
are opposite of that, I lose my patience very quickly.
Sure.
Inside voice.
Sure.
That was edited. Sorry, that was too long. I'm
No,
not
that's
good at this
okay.
rapid fire
I
thing.
was wondering how you were gonna navigate that because I would have rather you just been like blah. But okay, I get it. I get it. What keeps you up at night?
Right now, the answer is menopause, but
That's a
that's it.
that's a
I
fair
would
answer.
say. I mean, yeah,
That's real life.
I love sleep, but probably menopause.
Okay. All right. Um, what do you do? Is there something you do that gets you into a flow state? Something you do that makes you feel like time just disappears?
Yes. Before this podcast, off air, everybody, Habir asked me what I was doing, and I cross country skate. I live in Tahoe full time. Cross country skating is something I saw. This is not quick fire. I'm so sorry.
No,
I
I'd love
like
to
to
hear
give
it. Please.
It's the most strenuous, difficult cardiovascular tasking sport people do. And I was watching the Pyeongchang Olympics. I was like, okay, watching on TV, I'm going to do the biathlon one day just to try it, but I'm going to learn how to skate in the process. And apparently, a very tiny percentage of the population of the world even knows or does cross country skate. That's why I want to do it. It's the most
Yeah.
difficult thing I've ever done. But when I'm skiing out in this valley and there's just this moment where life is perfect, Like I could
Mhm.
just be there forever. There's no time, there's nothing, just me and the snow and my terrible technique. That's where I'm at.
That sounds beautiful. That sounds amazing.
Thank
I've done
you.
a cross country a couple of times. It is very, very hard. And biathlon is so underrated. I think people watch that and they're like, "Oh, that's he's just skiing and then taking shit," But d you're so gassed and breathing so heavy. That gun is like I can only imagine how hard it is to, like, aim at whatever distance they're shooting at after they're just so
It's so
exhausted.
hard. It's so
Yeah,
hard. And
yeah.
that's the thing I love about it is because it's so hard. It reminds me very much of being an entrepreneur. It's so hard.
I like It's so hard. It's so hard. And
It's so hard.
often as an entrepreneur, you're doing like 2 different things at least at the same time, trying to, keep
Yes,
yourself
getting
sane.
punched in the face is always one of them.
That reminds me of a Mike Tyson quote. He said, "Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face." Also, something I think is true as of entrepreneurship. Everybody's got a plan for this business that's going to do so well until all of a sudden it doesn't, and then you got to find other ways to navigate. There's a section that I'm doing, which I'm like forcing this down people's throat here because I don't know how well received it's going to be, but I call it "You're Welcome." Have you seen the movie Moana by any chance?
Is that a
No,
cartoon?
it's a
No.
cartoon. Yeah, it's okay. I have young kids, so it's a Disney movie. Um, but there's a character in there who's like this demigod who's responsible for creating a lot of the things on Earth, and he's also egotistical. He's an egomaniac. So he has a song in there. He sings "You're Welcome," saying "You're welcome for everything I've created for you." But I want to use that because the guests that I have on the podcast are such amazing people like yourself who are doing things that most of us are not, or have done things that most of us haven't. So I would love for you to share one. I'm going to give you some time to think about it. Profound. What's the most profound piece of advice or information you think you could share with me and the listeners that you think has shaped your life? And when you share that with me, we are all going to say thank you to you. And then you'll say, "You're welcome." You're welcome. So, Dr. Tanya Gill, what is one profound piece of advice or information you could share with us?
If something's really hard, you should probably try to do it.
Love it.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. Am I supposed to say you're welcome?
Yes, you did it. And you did it without hesitation, which I
You're
loved.
welcome.
The last couple of guests, I'm like, "So you say?" Thank you. That was perfect. Thank you very much. You're welcome. You're welcome. That, if it's the hard thing, it's probably the right thing. Reminds me of a book and a quote that I love. I'm into Stoic philosophy. And there's the book called "The Obstacle is the Way." And that's it's taken from Marcus Aurelius, who's sort of like one of the biggest Stoic philosophers in ancient history. And that's what he used to say, the obstacle is the way. What the impediment to action is often the direction of the action, whereas many of us would run the other way. But the hard thing is probably the right thing to do. So I just wanted to add that in there because I think it's really true in life. So, Tanya, before we get into the 2 staple questions I ask every guest at the end of every episode, before we get there, how can people connect with you or find We Love Eyes?
In Canada, we are at Eye Drop Shop. Contacted them. Anthony is there to answer questions, but they are our distributor in all of Canada, and they are not just fabulous at what they do, but they are just fabulous people. He and Claudine.
Yeah. If our regular listeners are listening and watching, they are very familiar with Claudine because she's been on a few times in the past 12 months or
Oh,
so.
great.
And she's one of my favorite people. She's really amazing, really amazing. So shout out to Claudine. And Anthony's awesome, super cool guy.
Yeah,
Okay,
my
in
husband
Canada,
and
I dropped off.
Anthony are like, yeah, they're
Oh
the
yeah,
same person. Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah,
Very
they
cool.
have a love affair going
And
on.
in general, what if somebody wanted to reach out to you? Where could they find you?
So you can go to weloveeyes.com. That's my website. And then there's a little thing on the bottom that says contact us. And that pretty much, if you say, connect me to Dr. Gill, you'll get me.
Yeah, yeah. I want to be part of Dr. Gill's energy field.
Or you
We'll
could
connect.
send me a direct message on TikTok. I currently manage the We Love Eyes
You
TikTok
manage the
account right
TikTok.
now. I do. I love it because I didn't even know how to do a TikTok 18 months ago. We just started. It's challenging, it's fun, it's
Mhm.
super creative. Anything that's creative, I'm just all for. but I manage that account because I am truly inspired to make a fun space for eye problems there.
Now, the last two questions that I ask every guest. Number one, if we could hop in a time machine and go back to a point in your life where you were struggling, you're welcome to share the moment if you'd like to share what you were struggling with. But more importantly, what advice would you give to yourself at that time?
This is such an awesome question, and it's such a ridiculous answer. So I had a really hard time Saturday, not related to being an entrepreneur, just life in general, but life equals entrepreneur. It's the same thing. This might sound really silly. Just breathe. Believe it or not, just breathe. You can crawl in a hole, hug yourself, cry yourself. That's fine. But seriously, just breathe. You're welcome.
There's multiple points in this episode where you could say you're welcome. Just breathe. Just breathe. Just get through it.
Just breathe.
Final question. Everything you've accomplished to this point, how much of it is due to luck and how much is due to hard work?
0 luck, 100% hard work. I don't believe in luck.
Okay, great.
You're welcome.
Yes.
I actually don't believe in luck. If there was a such thing as luck, I would have won that Cabbage Patch Kid. I had to work for it.
That's a fair point.
Yes.
Yep.
I don't believe in luck.
That's great. That's great. Well, thank you. Clearly, you have worked extremely hard, and it's beautiful to see how much it's paying off, and I hope it does continue to. And I look forward to the next time I get to see you in person and possibly have you back on the podcast down the road to talk about some more fun stuff that you've been doing. Maybe learn about, more of your cross country, and maybe you start doing biathlon and what's happening with all of that. But thank you. Honestly, thank you so much, Tanya. It's been really great to chat. I appreciate all the insight.
That was so much fun. Thank you for having me, Javier.
My pleasure. And thank you to everybody who has been watching and listening. The 2020 podcast, Canada's #1 optometry podcast. Thanks for all the support. Say wave bye-bye to the puppy. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.